Glad to be here. Say amen. Amen. It's good to be in the Lord's house tonight. Always is. I don't think I can come up with a time it hadn't been good to be in the Lord's house. You got your Bibles tonight. Find your way over to the book of Mark once again. But Mark chapter number 4. Mark chapter number 4 tonight. As we look this morning about grace, and the Lord has given me somewhat of a mini-series here on some folks in the Bible who've experienced grace here in our New Testament. And we looked this morning about blind Bartimaeus, and we made the statement that there's grace for the blind. Even those that are blind to the fact that they need grace. The ones that don't even realize what all grace can do for them, that don't realize what a wonderful miracle it is to receive the grace of God. Those that don't have any desire to look for it, to find it, don't even know that they need it, it's still there for them as well. And God has a way of revealing that to us and letting us see that we do need grace and that it's there for us. But then tonight, I'd like to look at grace for the beast. And I'm not talking about the beast as in Satan. I'm talking about as a man that is like a beast. And that'll make more sense as we get a little bit deeper into this. And I've got 6 things to show you tonight. And don't worry, I had 8 this morning. And we didn't go too long, so 6 ought to be about right. So we'll see if we can't get you out of here about on time tonight. But we want the Lord to do all that He wants to do. We don't want to leave anything on the table tonight. So we're just going to let Him take it and do what He wants to with it. He's the only one that can use it anyways. I can't do nothing in it myself. But here in Mark chapter number 4, we'll pick up our reading in verse number 35. Verse number 35 here. You'll find that they have been here and they've been teaching the multitude, and the Lord has been showing them many parables. And He's teaching the multitude through parables, and now has come the time that they're about to depart, and they're about to break off this great meeting that they've had. In verse number 35 of Mark 4, and the same day when the even was come, He saith unto them, Let us pass over unto the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, there's that multitude that they've been serving, they've been working for, they've been teaching, they've been helping. How can I put it to you this way? They've been in camp meeting here with the multitude. Things have been real good for them. And now all of a sudden the Lord is telling them to leave a prosperous green pasture to go somewhere else. So keep that in your mind. As they have sent the multitude away, they took Him even as He was in the ship. And there were also with Him other little ships. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was now full. And He was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awake Him, and say unto Him, Master, carest Thou not that we perish? And He arose, and He rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And He said unto them, Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? And they feared exceedingly, and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey Him? Continue on into chapter number 5 here. And they came over unto the other side of the sea. Christ told them, let's go to the other side. And in chapter 5, verse 1, they have made it to the other side, exactly where Christ wanted them to go. Isn't it amazing? Even the storm couldn't derail Christ's plan. Even the storm couldn't come in and keep them from getting where Christ wanted them to go. But they've come to the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes. And when He was come out of the ship, immediately there met Him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains. And the chains had been plucked asunder. They had been torn off and thrown away by him. And the fetters were broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped Him, and cried with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with Thee, Jesus, Thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure Thee by God that Thou torment me not. For he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. We'll pick up here in a little bit with some more reading, but let's get started tonight. As I talked about this morning, grace coming to blind Bartimaeus. Well, now grace has found its way here to the man named Legion, a man that is nothing more than a beast. And I want to walk you down through the text here tonight and just show you a handful of things, and then we'll go to the house and let the Lord do what He wants to do tonight. But I want you to notice, first of all, and it's real short, who all's going? Who all is going? Who all is going to get to experience grace given unto this man? Can you imagine being a part of the story of the maniac of Gadara? To be able to get on the boat alongside of Christ, to go through everything they went through, to get there, and we know the story. There's no new preaching under the sun tonight. It might be new to you, but somebody else has probably preached it already. But we know the story. We know what's going to happen. How would you have liked to have been on that boat, to go through all that? You're worried for your life. And all of a sudden you look up, Christ stands up, peace be still, and everything is calm like glass. They're in awe of the Son of God. They're in awe of Jesus and everything that He has done. But it doesn't stop there. They go on over to the land here of Gadara, the maniac of Gadara. They go over here, they see this man, and now they get to witness Christ come in and fix somebody and show grace to somebody that nobody else had any time for. You'll know one of my favorite things about being a preacher is, because I get to go to different people's churches, and I get to hear other preachers bragging about what God has done for somebody in their congregation. I love when God gets a hold of somebody that used to be a drug addict. Have you ever met somebody like that? Had thrown their life away, had shriveled up into nothing but a raisin of a man. You didn't know if they was going to make it another month. They was old strung out on meth or crack or whatever it was. And all of a sudden God reached down and got a hold to them, changed their life, saved them. And you see them a few years later, and guess what? You would have never known it if you didn't know their past. That's only something God can do. Everybody else would give up on them, but guess what? God never did give up. God kept on going. Years ago, Locust Grove had an addiction awareness meeting. I'm not talking about an AA meeting where you sit around the tables in the fellowship hall and talk about. No, it was church. It was church, and it was for those that struggle with addiction and those parents of children that were wayward and messed up on drugs and everything else. And he had preachers come in and preach to encourage those parents and to help those folks that were struggling. And I don't know why. I don't know if he didn't pray about it or what, but one day he called me and wanted me to come and preach the addiction awareness meeting. And I'm like, buddy, I've been clean for 20-something years at that point in time. Y'all are trying to figure out when I wasn't clean, and there ain't never been a time. That's just how long I've been alive. So don't think that I was shooting up when I was 4 or something like that. But anyways, I've been clean my whole life. I don't know nothing about that. I don't even, luckily, I thank the Lord for this, I don't even really have a family member that's close to me that has been into that type of situation. I'm not equipped to preach this sort of thing, but the same Bible and the same God that I got is the same one that they need. So I went and I preached a message called "It Ain't Over Till It's Over." It ain't over until God says it's over. It might be the prodigal son. It might be the lady there, the Shunammite woman that thought her son was about to be dead, had already give up hope, but God came back and brought him back. I love those type of cases when everybody else has give up, has thrown in the towel, says that it's over, says that there's no hope anymore, there's no sense even going and trying. They're a lost cause. They're a reprobate mind. Don't waste your time on them. And all of a sudden there was one person, somebody that kept praying, somebody that kept fighting, somebody that kept witnessing, somebody that kept getting them to church. And all of a sudden one day, God come by, God saved that person, God saved the one that they thought was a lost cause and set them up onto some holy high ground and changed their life for the better. I love hearing those type of stories. I love when anybody gets saved, but I really like when somebody gets saved and you know God's a hold of them. You don't know why? It's one thing for a little old kid 7 or 8 years old to get saved. I understand there's a change in their life, but it's not like they was knocking over liquor stores or anything. I mean, their biggest sin is they lied to mom and daddy and they said they cleaned their room, but they actually hid it under their bed. Something like that. But when you take somebody that's been in the jailhouse, you take somebody that's been rolled over by the world, somebody that's struggling, somebody that's hurting, and all of a sudden you see what God has done with them, and He's cleaned them up, and He's put them on a straight and narrow, and He's fixed their lives for the better, I like it. I like it. That's got some power behind it. When I would go down to Vaden and I would preach at that prison, and I've told the story before, and men come up, want to pray with you, and I'd get down and I'd pray alongside them men. I'd close my eyes and pray with them, get up, and the chaplain would be like, hey, he's in here for murder. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that before I bowed my head and closed my eyes around him? What's wrong with you? Well, there was this old black bald-headed fella down there. He'd get up and sing Because He Lives, a cappella. We'd be in that old block mess hall. It was old cinder block walls. They had a picture mural on the wall, and it was a prisoner in the black and white stripes, looked like something off old Brother Wire out there, the old school uniforms. He's up there on the wall, and he's dying. He's left out of this place, and Jesus is standing behind him, has his arms wrapped around him. That's a mural they got on the wall there. But he got up and saying, Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. And he began to just praise God. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why ain't this man singing to a church somewhere?
because God got a hold of his life after he had already got into that mess and he's doing his time. But you could see the very obvious change in him. I've got friends and folks that I know that have been strung out in that stuff, and now they're standing behind the pulpit sharing the Word of God. Really, Brother Easton? Mm-hmm. I've got a wife that's sitting here saved tonight because of a tent revival that a crack addict put on out at Herkin. How about that? There's a church right now right outside of Texarkana. It's right in Sims, Texas there. Ain't too far over in the Texas side of things. There's a church right now that's pastored by a man that's doing a great work. Started his own church out there. They used to be strung out on dope and everything else. Surrendered to preach. The Lord got a hold of his life, changed everything about him. And next thing you know, he's putting on tent revivals and he's pastoring a church and folks are getting saved. And now he's doing something for the kingdom of God. Ain't that something? When God goes out of his way to give grace to somebody that everybody else looks at and says they're a beast, there's no reason to help them, there's no reason to pray for them, there's no reason to even shed a tear over them. But God just keeps on doing it, doesn't he? He just keeps on using folks that he should never use. Well, if we went down the list and we begin to pick everybody that has done great things for God that we think needed to be used, I'm not sure we'd find any. Let me ask y'all a question. Who is widely considered outside of Jesus as one of the biggest and best preachers in the New Testament? He wrote a bunch of books of the Old New Testament, by the way. Paul. Man, he's a great preacher, ain't he? You ever read his epistles? He got some good stuff that he says. You do remember the time when he was named Saul and he was dragging Christians out to be prosecuted and potentially killed. Remember that, right? A lot of folks, by the way, you go back and study your Bible, when Paul loses his sight there on the Damascus Road, when he sees that blinding light and he talks to the Lord there and he realizes everything that he's done and he's gotten saved and he's changed his life up, he didn't get his eyesight back there on the Damascus Road. The Lord sent him into a town to find somebody by the name of Ananias. And the Lord met with Ananias and told him that he was headed that way. And Ananias is scared to death. He said, hold on now. And I'm paraphrasing this. Y'all go back and read it if you want to. Acts 9, 10, somewhere about in there. Damascus Road is Acts 9. So I'm assuming 9, 10. I don't know if it goes in the next chapter or not. Not in the notes. I'm freestyling tonight. But anyways, he goes and begins to think about it. And he's like, Lord, no. This is a guy that's been persecuting Christians. There's no way that he has changed his life to, instead of killing and persecuting Christians, where now all of a sudden not only is he a Christian, but he wants to come and to meet me, that I might return his sight. No. There's no way something like that happened. But Ananias just has faith. And Paul shows up and he heals those eyes there. Ananias lays them hands on him, heals those eyes. And Paul jumps up preaching, and he's still preaching today. Somebody that nobody thought God would ever use. Somebody that you could have looked at and said, God, just knock him out of the way. Get rid of him. But God said no. God said no. Who all's going to see the maniac of Gadara? Jesus is going. That's the important one. But then every once in a while, when Jesus goes to see somebody to give them grace, we get to go along for the ride, do we not? Isn't it wonderful when you get to be, as some preachers call it, to be in the birthing room, to witness the brand new childbirth being born up here, when they've been born again, when that person has come down a lost, sin-sick sinner, and they're saved by the grace of God, they've been born again, as the New Testament says, and they have come up a new creature. Sometimes it's real good to be able to sit there and watch God give grace to somebody. It sure is nice when you know that you got a family member or a work friend or something like that, and they've been struggling and they've been hurting and they feel like everybody else has quit on them, that God shows up and gives them grace, and the next thing you know, they've changed their whole life around, and you just get to be a fly on the wall and watch God work. That's wonderful. I love it. I've had folks come to me wanting to be saved and asking about it and don't really understand what's going on and be able to talk to them and lead them to the Lord. But the ones I really like, there's a little girl at Locust Grove come down there, and I didn't have to do nothing. I didn't have to do nothing, Brother Dennis, which I can't do nothing anyways. But she come down the side aisle of that place, and I was praying. Her brother's lost too. I've been praying for him for years. And I was praying for him right there in that moment, and I heard some commotion behind me, and I said, oh, Lord, let it be him. And I turned around and looked. It wasn't him, but it was his little sister. I think some of them prayers might have been slipping off of him and going on to her. But anyway, she's coming down the aisle, and she had the big old crocodile tears, and her face was all red. And they grabbed me, and we went down over here to the side at Locust Grove, around the back side of that little thing, and we was on the staircase. And I said, what's going on? She says, I'm lost, and I need to be saved. I said, what you going to do about it? She said, I'm going to ask Jesus to save me. I said, that's all you got to do. You don't need me for nothing else. I like it when they come down like that and they say, hey, I know I need grace. And I just get to step back and say, all right, Lord, I'm going to watch for a little while. I'm going to let you do all this. It's nice to be able to watch grace fall on somebody, ain't it? We got so selfish, so prideful and greedy at this point in time. If grace ain't falling on us, we just feel like it ain't falling on nobody and we can't be happy. You want to be happy in this life? Learn to be happy for other people too. Learn to be happy when things go good for other people as well. When somebody else gets grace, when some other church gets somebody saved, when some other church has a member join up, when somebody else does something big for God, be excited. Y'all remember what happened? It's been 7, 8 years ago now. Y'all remember that big old revival that broke out in Burlington, North Carolina? Y'all remember that thing? It was a week-long meeting. Folks was getting saved. God was moving a great and mighty way, so they extended it. It went 2 weeks. It kept on going. It went 3 weeks. It went 4 weeks. It went 5 weeks. They was folks from Mississippi driving all the way to North Carolina to be a part of that meeting just to get in on what God was doing because they just wanted to be able to watch grace fall on some folks. 13 weeks is how long that revival meeting went on. Hundreds of folks got saved. And a lot of folks went just so they could get in on it and watch it. I'm not upset that it happened up there. I'd love to see it happen down here too. But I'm not upset that it happened up there. I'm glad some more folks got added to the family of God. I like watching grace fall on people. I like to experience grace, but I like to watch it too. Who all's going? Who all's getting to watch this thing? Jesus and the disciples. Well, where are they going? Well, they're leaving a good work. They're leaving the multitude. Can you imagine the thoughts these disciples have got here? Lord, it's eventime. Y'all know what that means, right? It's going to get dark. It's going to get dark. It's in the afternoon. It's fixing to be dark, and they can't see much of nothing. It ain't time to be planning a trip to go nowhere. It's time to be going and find a bed somewhere. It's time to get a little food in their belly and be done for the day. But now all of a sudden, here comes Christ, comes by them and says, all right, boys, we're going to take the multitude that we've been ministering to. We're going to take the revival, the camp meeting that we're in the middle of. We're going to take all the good things that are happening right now, all the folks that are excited about God. We're going to take all the teaching of the parables that's been done, that whole crowd that's in on that and loving that. We're going to send all of them away. We're going to get in this little old dinghy of a boat over here, and we're going to go to the other side. How many folks would have looked at Jesus and been like, huh? You want us to do what? Well, let me put it to you this way. It'd be like a preacher that's got a big old mega church with thousands of folks in it, where God is working and God has His finger on it, and folks are getting saved every service, and folks are surrendering to the ministry, and folks are surrendering to the mission field, and all these things. And it's just like God is just throwing grace out left and right, and there's so much good going on. And then all of a sudden God comes and tells that preacher, hey, leave where I'm working, and I want you to go way over there on the backside of nowhere. That's what's happening. I can't believe the disciples here. I understand they knew Jesus was leading them, and He's done crazy things like that before, and it always works out. But I got to imagine in their mind, they're probably thinking to themselves, why? Why? He's doing so good right here. The multitude is coming to us. They're already right there. It's just working out just fine. Why are we leaving? By the way, where are we going? He didn't even say y'all are going to do anything but go to the other side. He didn't tell them what town they were shooting for. He didn't tell them, hey, we got another meeting planned over here. He didn't tell them that there was a maniac in the tombs that needed him. He didn't tell them nothing. He just said, hey, leave where God is moving, doing really, really big things, and go over there. Just go over there. That takes some faith, don't it? Takes some faith when you feel like God's blessing you in one place, but He's planning to bless you somewhere else. Sometimes you got to go if you're going to get that other blessing. Sometimes you got to say, all right, Lord, I guess this is why you're God and I'm not. You tell me where to go and I'm just going to go. Sometimes it's hard to leave something you feel like God has blessed you with. I tell you all the time about Sue's job. We've been praying and praying and praying the Lord bless her with that job. He let her get that job, and I don't think she kept it 2 years, and God said, quit and go to the house. What? When all that happened, I was so tore up. I preached on a message that said when God takes away what He just blessed you with. I preached a message on it because that's what I felt like. I felt like, God, what are you doing? You just blessed me with this thing that I've been praying for. You answered my prayer, and it ain't even cooled off yet. It's still smoking, that thing so fresh. I ain't even got used to that blessing yet. And now you took it away from me. That don't make no sense. But you know what God said? He said, I gave you that blessing to help build your faith so that I can give you a better blessing now. But if I wanted to get that better blessing, you know what I had to do? I had to leave that blessing over there to go get that blessing over there. Now I got 2 blessings. How about that? Count your many blessings. Name them one by one. I'm at 2 today. I can get that high. I got a lot more than 2. I'm just kidding. I got 2 every second, it seems like. God's so good to us. But no, he says, leave out. Where are they going? Well, they're leaving the multitude. They're leaving the miracles. They're leaving these people to go get in a boat. And then when they get there, Jesus is the one that's told them to go the other side like he's in some great rush. But then when he gets to the boat, what does he do? He goes to the back of the boat and goes to sleep. Can you imagine? Simon Peter's got to be just fuming right now. He's got to be thinking to himself, you got to be kidding me. If all you wanted to do was sleep, we could have slept over there where it was nice and comfy and all the people were at. But now you done put me out here on a boat. It's finna get dark because it's eventime. It's a terrible time to try to sail across the sea. It's not like they had light bars or anything on this boat. They didn't have spotlights. That lantern ain't going to go too far out across the water. And if it was a torch, it got rained out pretty quick. That storm come in, they can't see nothing. They're literally living by faith at this point. But if you're going to be living by faith and you're in a boat, you better be in a boat with Christ. That's a pretty good place to be. But they've gone to get in this little boat and they head across the other side and Jesus is asleep. They don't really know where they're going or what they're doing. They find that this storm comes by, and what does the Bible say about that? It says, let's see here, in verse number 37, chapter 4, verse 37, there's this great storm that has come in. There arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was now full. You ever notice that? They weren't just getting tossed to and fro in the waves. They're going down. The boat is full of water. They are belling water left and right. They're treading water. They're looking back at Jesus, and he's floating on his pillow back there like he's in a pool somewhere. And they're thinking, how in the world is he still sleeping through all this? I was doing just fine with the multitude, and now not only have I had to leave, our things are good, but now I'm going through a storm to try to go somewhere that I don't know where I'm going and why I'm going there. It don't make no sense. But then they call out to Jesus. Of course, you know the story. Do you care not? Do you care not that we perish? Master, carest thou not that we perish? He arose, rebuked the wind, said unto the sea, peace be still, and the wind ceased. There's a great calm. There's a great calm. We know who all is going, where they're going, and what they were going through. But I want you to see who they went for. I imagine if Jesus would have let them in on the mission, if he'd have told them when he said, hey, we're going to leave the multitude, and they were like, why, Jesus? Why are we leaving the multitude? Everything's good. If he'd have told them, there's somebody on the other side right over there that's ready to get saved, ready to change their life, we're going to go help them. I bet you they'd have been like, hey, let's go see another miracle. Let's go see Jesus do something else big. They probably would have been gung-ho to get out across there, but can you imagine the disappointment they had when they finally made it there? We're on the way over here for Jesus to do something big, and guess who's coming to us out of the tomb? You got this wild beast of a man that is stark naked, covered in cuts, screaming and outside of his mind. And they're looking at each other. I imagine Simon Peter goes up to John and says, you got this one, buddy. That one's yours. I took the last one like that. That one's yours. You can have him. No. He didn't tell them nothing, but let me tell you who they went for. They went for a beast of a man that nobody else had any compassion on. They went for somebody else that They went for a man that everybody else had give up on, that nobody had any hope for. They went for a man that had no hope, that had no help, that had nobody. I started to make a sermon on that. I was going to call it No Hope, No Help, and No Homies because he had nobody to help him, but I figured I'd laugh at me if I made homies part of my outline. I've preached before and used dude as the D I needed to alliterate things, so it wouldn't be too far off. But he ain't got nothing. He ain't got nobody. He's out there by himself. What is the state of this man? It says that he's gone out there and night and day he's in the tombs. What a place to live. What a place to live. I think I'll just crawl up in the tombs and that's where I'm going to stay. You don't know why he's in the tombs? Because he done been run out of town. He done been run out of town. Nobody want him there anymore. They've run him off into the tombs. He's lived up there and he's thinking to himself, well, I might as well just go ahead and die. At least I'm in the right place to die. They won't have to carry me too far. They done give up on me. I ain't even got nobody that cares enough about me to give me a proper burial or a funeral. I might as well go ahead and bury myself while I'm still alive because that's how hopeless my situation is. Sounds pretty tough, don't it? That's where the maniac of Gadara is at. He's roaming to and fro in the tombs in the mountains. Says that he's crying. He's weeping. He's hollering out. He's lost it. He sees what a terrible place he's in. What a case his life is. He's looking for help left and right. Nobody's come to help. Nobody can do anything for him. He's ready to throw the towel in. Give it up. He's already in the tomb just waiting for the day that God takes him out of this place. He says, there ain't enough grace for me. There ain't nobody that cares for me. There ain't no way my situation can change, that I can be fixed. There's no way that I'm going to be any different. This is where it ends for me. Crying about a situation. He's cutting himself with stones. He ain't even got a knife. He just got some stones, and he's just... You know why people cut themselves? It's to punish themselves. They tell us that the reason they cut themselves is to punish themselves because they feel like they're not worthy or they're not doing right. It's their version of whipping on themselves. What's he doing? He's cutting himself because he's trying to punish himself because he knows just how bad his case is. He's ready to die. He's ready to throw in the towel. He feels like he's got no hope and no help. He's ready to cut himself and punish himself. He's just in that terrible of a headspace. He's thinking there's no grace that can reach a place like this. There's no grace that can reach down into this dark hole of a tomb that I'm in. There's no grace that can fix what's going on in my mind and all these demons that are running rampant. There's no grace that can fix all of my friends and family that I lost. There's no grace that can come in and make me in my right mind again. He's thinking that there's no choice, no help, no options, nothing that will ever fix it. And now all of a sudden these disciples have pulled up on the docks. And it says immediately, you read your Bible there, immediately, here comes this man. And they look at him and they see the state of him, and I bet you that's the first thing on their mind too. Oh my goodness. The first one that probably saw him, Simon Peter's tying the boat up. John's on the other end tying the other side of the boat up. Maybe it was Andrew. I don't know who it was. Might have been Bartholomew. You never know. Might have been Judas. That'd be real fitting for him. Might have looked up and saw him and said, boys, get back in the boat. Let's get out of this place. Look at this thing coming this way. Oh man, there's no way we can help him. And we were headed down to Louisiana, and we had just gone through some nice, good towns with great gas stations to stop at. We ain't 3 miles past that, and I hear little Miss Thing over here go, I need to potty. Of course you do, because you wouldn't do that when we go through the nice, beautiful place to stop. Instead, you do it in the middle of nowhere. We're trying to find somewhere to stop. She don't want to go in the restaurant to use the bathroom. She has to go to a gas station. I don't know why in the world she won't do that. But she had set in her mind, and we still had like 4 hours on this trip left to do. 4 hours out is not a good time to make them mad. Okay? And I'm not letting my kids rule the roost, but there are some battles that ain't worth fighting. I'll tell you that. And when you got them trapped in the car seat for 4 more hours, sometimes you just concede defeat on that one, and you let them go potty where they want to potty. But we pulled into that gas station, and there's a guy sitting there on the front. And you can tell, man, he's tweaking. He's tweaking out on something. He's sitting there and he's doing his hands all kind of weird. And I got my gun. I'm sitting there like, well, I'm going to watch my kids. And I got one of them in the vehicle, and I got one going that way. I don't know what I'm going to do. But they walked through the front door, and that guy kind of watched them go in there. So I already had in my mind, so I'm going to lock the doors and go in there with him if he gets up. But he gets up, and he goes, and does like this. I'm like, what in the world is this guy doing? You know what the last thing on my mind was? Hey, here's the gospel. I'm sorry. Sometimes your preacher don't do like he's supposed to do. I'm first to admit that. That was the last thing on my mind. So we really think Simon Peter and John and Judas and Bartholomew and Andrew and all them other guys, Simon the Zealot, we really think all them other disciples looked at this crazy guy that's bleeding and is necking and is running to them, coming down to the boat. They're probably thinking they're finna get attacked or mugged or something worse. They don't know what's going on here. You really think the first thing on their mind was, hey, have some grace. No. These were men. These were men just like us. But there was one of them there. That was his plan all along, by the way. That's the reason he went over there. That's the whole reason he went. They went for somebody that was in that type of shape. Somebody that is in a terrible place. This man is not only out of his mind, but he is beyond recognition at this point. He's doing things that no man ought to be able to do. He's literally become a beast. He is literally wild in his thoughts and in his actions. What does it say there? It says in verse number 3 of chapter number 5, he had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him. How do you know that no man could bind him? That means a lot of them have tried. You don't just send one person out there to try to bind him and then say, oh, he's unbindable. No, they tried it many times. It says in verse number 4, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains. They've tried it. When he first lost his mind and they first tried to run him out of town, they had in their mind that they were going to go and they were going to fix this guy. So let's take the chains, let's take the fetters to put around his feet and between his wrists. Let's take all the things we need to hold him down, to hold him back, to try to force him into comply with what we have going on. Let's go and try it. They tried the first day. Rips all that stuff off. All right, boys, bring out the log chains. Bring out the big ones. They go and they put it on him again. It blows it all apart. Day in and day out, all they're doing, ain't no one of them come up there with love and grace for him. They all come up there with chains and fetters, trying to hold him down, trying to force him to comply. By the way, you won't ever force nobody to accept grace. You understand that, right? You won't ever force nobody to do it. They got to do it on their own. You ever heard that little saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink? You think leading a horse to water is hard? You ought to try getting behind one and pushing them to water. Sammy J, next time you load up your horse on that trailer to go barrel racing somewhere, we're going to come and we're all going to get behind the horse and we're going to put hands on that thing's rear end and try to push it on the trailer. How's that going to work out? Not good. Why? Because we all going to get kicked, ain't we? I'm in the back of the line. I'm telling you that. You can't push somebody into it. But when you get ready to load that horse on the trailer, Sammy J, what do? You put reins on that thing and you walk them on that trailer, don't you? What you're supposed to do. I don't know what kind of horse. She might have a trick horse. She might be able to say, shh, load up or something like that, and that dude jump in there. I don't know. But you get them reins and you lead that horse in there, and that horse follows you right on in. You don't know how you get people into the grace, get them into the family of God? You can't force them in. But if you get in that thing and you say, hey, come on in, look how good this is. Look how great it is to be in the grace of God. They're a lot easier to lead in, to pull in, than they are to push in. Look at the man that he went for and the state that he was in. He's been bound by fetters and chains. Nobody could do anything but try to force him to be like they wanted. It said that nobody could bind him. It says that no man could tame him. They went in and they had in their mind what they wanted this man to be like, how they wanted him to dress, how they wanted him to act, how they wanted him to behave himself. They had in their mind like he was a beast. Like he's a lion tamer. They're going to go in there and they're going to tame this man because he's so beastly, I guess. I don't know if that's a word. It is tonight. He's so much like a beast. How about that? That's better English. But they're going to go in and try to tame him and make him something. You can't do it. You can't do it. We don't have that ability. There is one that does. There is one that does. Who they went for and what all he went through, being possessed and run out of town and bound and forced to do all these things. But then I want you to see, lastly tonight, what Jesus did. You want to know one of the greatest things that Jesus did in this text? He showed up. He showed up. He did something for this man that nobody had done in a long time. He came. He came to see this man. This man that had nobody coming to tell him the gospel, nobody to love on him, nobody to care for him, nobody to show him anything about grace. But then Jesus shows up. Shows up. This man had been watching him. Because it says immediately as Jesus gets out of the boat, boom, this guy's already there. He's already right there. Already recognizes who it is and what's coming his way. What did it say? It said immediately he saw him in verse number 6. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshiped him. Huh? This guy's got thousands of demons in him right now. And he still came and worshiped Jesus. You know why he worshiped Jesus? Because he knew that Jesus was the only one that could fix the mess that he was in. He had tried everything else. Other folks had tried to bind him. They tried to tame him. They tried to force him. None of that worked. But now all of a sudden, here comes somebody. Here comes somebody that's got a completely different approach. It's called grace. It's called grace. He showed up, and you'll find that he sends the demons out. Those demons, isn't that something? That just shows you how powerful Jesus is. When the demons come up to him and essentially say, look, we know that you're going to get rid of us, that we can't stay here, but I'm asking that you don't send us out of the countryside. I'm asking that you don't send us all the way. So what did he do? They said, there's some swine over on the hillside. Let us go over there. And Jesus says, go. Go. Let me see. Is that in Matthew or is that in here in Mark? They ask about these swine. I know it's in one of these accounts. I was looking at it. Let's see here. Let me find it here. Let's see. All the devils besought him, verse 12, saying, send us unto the swine that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave. He gave them leave here in Mark, but in Matthew's account, he says that little two-letter word, go. He didn't force them. He didn't pull them out of there. The demons knew they couldn't stay. He just said, go over there. You're free to go. Whenever you want to. I want to say it this way, and I don't want to take away from the story here. Jesus didn't take those demons out. Those demons fled. They fled. Because they knew they weren't able to stay there, so by their own accord, they chose to go jump in the swine. And what happened to the swine after that? They stampeded down the hill, run off the cliff into the sea, and perished. Every one of them. Not a one was left. What did he do? What did Jesus do? He showed up for him. He sent the demons out. He fixed it. He fixed the problem. You'll find that he showed them compassion. It says in verse number 10, the tail end of verse number 10, he says, tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee and hath had compassion on thee. You want to know another good word for compassion? Grace. Grace. He came and did something for this man that nobody else had ever done before. They came with chains and fetters and the law. He came with grace. He sent the demons out. He changed that man's life. He showed him compassion. Then you'll find that he gave him rest. He gave him rest. The men that had the swine, verse 14, and they that fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. And they come to Jesus and see him that was, I like that little word, was possessed. They didn't see the one that is possessed. They didn't see the legion. They didn't see a possessed man. They saw the one that was. They saw how much he had changed already. They knew him for what he used to be, and now they get to see him for what he is today, after grace. They saw him that was possessed with the devil and had the legion sitting. Jesus not only came and showed up and sent the demons away, but he gave him rest. He gave him rest. There's no rest for your soul in comparison to when you bask in the grace of God. When you just sit back and say, Lord, I can't do it without you. Lord, you shouldn't have chose me to do it. I don't know why you're doing it, but I sure am thankful for grace. And you just sit back and just bask in what all God's done for you. There's no rest like that. That's wonderful to be able to sit back, not worry about what's coming tomorrow. Don't worry about the calendar. Just look back at your life, think about all the times that God has sent you grace after grace after grace after grace. That's rest. He gave him rest. What was this man doing before that? Day and night. He ain't sleeping. Day and night. He's running from tomb to tomb across the mountains, and he's screaming and crying and cutting himself with stones. He ain't been able to just sit still and rest for a long time. But I believe this is about like that Bible verse. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. This man got to be still and know. He finally got the chance to have some rest. See these folks in the world we live that are running around crazy, chasing the next high, the next whatever they need to be happy, they seem like. But all of a sudden, when God gets a hold of them, they're finally able to rest. He gave him rest. He finally clothed him as well. They saw him sitting and clothed. They hadn't seen him like that in a long time. He didn't want him to be embarrassed. He didn't want him to be in shame anymore. Why did they strip Jesus of his garment? I understand it was to fulfill prophecy. But why did they strip Jesus of his garment? Was it not to embarrass him? Was it not to bring shame on him? So if Jesus was stripped to bring shame, what do you think Jesus was doing when he gave clothes to somebody that didn't have none? He was covering their shame. He was getting rid of the shame. He stepped in to this man that had no reason to think that Christ would love him, had no reason to expect grace. Not only did he give him grace and fix his life, but he took his own little clothes, his coat or whatever they had there, and he placed it on him and said, I don't want nobody else to see you like you used to be. Ain't that like God to come in and fix somebody with a past and let us see them the way they are today? Brother Doug used to say it all the time at Locust Grove. I don't care how you were when you got here. I just care how you leave. I just care how you leave. You can come in here the most sin-sick sinner that's ever walked the face of the earth. But if you have an encounter with the Lord and you experience this grace, you can leave out here white as snow. He gave him rest and he clothed him. He put him in his right mind. And then you'll find that he gave him a story to tell as well. They saw this man sitting and clothed in his right mind. And they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, also concerning the swine. And they began to pray him to depart out of their coast. Jesus and the disciples made this whole trip for one person, and now they're being kicked out. Depart out of their coast, and when he was coming to the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. He said, nobody else has ever treated me like you. Nobody else has ever loved me like you love me. Nobody else has ever shown me grace like you've shown me. Nobody else has ever been so good and kind to me. I can amen every bit of that. Nobody else has ever given me a reason to be excited, to think I have hope. I just want to go with you. I want to go with you. But Jesus looked at him. He said, no. Verse 19, howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but saith unto him, go home. You didn't know that, did you? When he's up there in the tombs, and he's crying, and he's cutting himself, and he's running around naked, he did have a home that he could have been at. Because of grace, he got it back. Ain't that like God to take the situation where somebody has destroyed their home? When they get it right with him, he gives grace. He lets them have it back. Puts marriages and families back together. Go back to your home. To thy friends. Where were these friends at when he was in the tombs? They'd give up on him. They'd give up on him. It might have been them that were coming up there with the chains and the fetters. It might have been them that tried to bind him and tried to tame him and tried to fix him. They might have tried to help for a little while, but eventually they gave up on him. But Christ looked at him and said, hey, after I've shown you this grace, I want you to go back to them again. Go back to your home, go back to your friends, and tell them how great things the Lord has done for thee and hath had compassion on them. Go back, let them see how you are now, and remind them what you used to be. And tell them how that somebody by the name of Jesus came by and showed grace to you when you were a beast of a man. That nobody else wanted. That everybody else has give up on. That they had give up on. That they had run out of your own home. I want you to go back into your house and say, grace fixed it all. Grace fixed it all. Grace fixed everything that was wrong. I want you to go back and tell them. Tell them how that God, the Lord, had compassion on thee. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him. And all men did marvel. How about that? He went back and began to tell the story of what grace did for him in his life. I said I like it when God gets a hold of somebody that used to be a beast of a man or a beast of a lady. Why do you think Mary Magdalene followed Jesus so faithfully the way that she did? She had a lot in common with this legion. Didn't she have demons in her as well that Christ had cast out? She had great love for him because she had experienced the same type of grace, and because of that she was ready and willing to follow him wherever he went. This man here, he experienced so much grace that he wanted to jump on the boat. He didn't ask where they were going, what they were doing. He didn't even know everybody's names. He just knew Jesus. And the grace that he felt, he said, I want to go with them. I want to keep on going with them to experience that grace over and over and over again. But Jesus said, I want you to go and tell somebody else. He went in and says that all men did marvel. I like that word all. That means he was screaming it from the rooftops. Can you imagine? Last time they saw this guy, they were running him out of town because he's possessed of a demon. He's going to strip his clothes off and run around like a wild man, like a beast. And all of a sudden they see him come back in, and you never would have known what all he had been through. Because that's what grace does. That's what grace does for a man that's more like a beast. We live in a world today where so many folks think there's not enough grace. There's no way that God would take somebody like me. There's no way that there's enough grace to come and to fix my situation. But I'll tell you, not only is there grace for the blind man, there's grace for the beast of a man too. No matter how bad you are, there is grace. Miss Angie, would you come play tonight? I'm done. Let's all stand tonight as she plays.